Welcome, everybody. I hope you're enjoying lunch. I want to welcome you to this panel discussion. This is sponsored by the Kahn Institute. I'm Suzanne Gottschang. I'm the director of the Kahn. This panel is, I think, going to be a fascinating conversation among scholars and practitioners. The title of it is How Can Human Values Inform Technological Innovation? A Dialogue. I'd like to introduce Susannah Howe.
Hello, everyone. I'm Susannah Howe. I have the great pleasure of co-moderating this panel with Suzanne Gottschang. I'm in engineering, and in particular, I oversee the senior level course where students work on projects with industry and government. So we are sitting at the intersection of academia and industry within a liberal arts college, but working in the corporate setting as well. And so it feels like a very natural partnership to be part of this panel as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Jay Garfield, who will let you know who our panelists are and how they have come to be here at Smith having this conversation.
Thank you, Suzanne and Susannah, and thank you to the Kahn Institute for facilitating this remarkable event. You might think that Nippon Telephone and Telegraph and Smith College are not natural partners in the world, and you might be forgiven for thinking that. But I'm hoping that by the end of today, you'll see that that's not so. There's so much in shared values and shared commitment that make this a very natural partnership. And so I'm really pleased to have Jun Sawada-san, who is chairman of the board of Nippon Telephone and Telegraph, the largest telecommunications company in the world and third largest corporation in the world, and all the way to Smith. Professor Yasuo Deguchi, the vice provost for humanities at Kyoto University and chair of the philosophy department. And we love Kyoto University because it actually has 5 philosophy departments, which I've always thought is the right number for a university. But Yasuo is chair of the one that's actually called the philosophy department. So thank you both for coming all the way from Kyoto to participate in this event. And now I won't take any more of their time. Yasuo, it's yours.
For all for coming to this event, and thank you for all to make me here. I'm very excited to be here. And let me first, a very brief introduction of a new institution we are just established. So please, next, please. Okay. So that is our new institution, Kyoto Institute of Philosophy. That was just established this summer by initiation of Jun Sawada-san and me and Jay Garfield as well. And its main agenda is to propose new value or new values, plural. That's very important, to the contemporary and future society for every stakeholder for that society around the world. So our aim to make this society is more multi-layered value society. Values should not be single. So there are many values should be available for each society. So for that, we are going to propose as many possible values to society. That's our main missions. Please, next. To do that, so this is one of our main activities to come to hold Kyoto conference. That is a sort of a Kyoto alternative to the Davos conference, now a very famous one. And that will be the first conference will be held in the 2 years later, 2025. So for that preparation, so we will have coming January, inauguration symposium for this institution in Kyoto. And we will set up some sort of agenda for the conference that is we called Kyoto Declarations in the coming months. Please, next. And so this is my proposal among many proposals or values from that institution. I call that is we turn. We turn. Okay, that is a turn or shift of a subject or unit of many things, X. For example, our somatic actions, talking to you, or self, life, well-being, rights, responsibility, and freedom. From I, individual, to we, right? So from I do to we do, from I think to we think, from I decide to we decide, from self as I to self as we. Okay, that kind of idea. So please, next. But that is based on my basic observation of a human individual. It's profound, universal, unavoidable, I frame, incapability or incapabilities. And there are two examples here. The first one is incapability of single action. Its idea is this: no individual, I and you, whoever, cannot perform any somatic action alone. So we need help, support, afford from many other peoples, animals, non-lives, environment, blah, blah, blah. That's why not I do, but we do X. That's a basic idea of we term. And please next. That's the sort of philosophical system that made many assumptions, inferences, but I don't have any time to explain that. No worry, it is not a lecture. And anyway, and next, please. Some other structures, many structure, next, please. And yes, next, please. Okay. Okay, let me finishing. Next, please. So, and last one, yes. So this is a sort of a double version up. One is a Western philosophical tradition, 19th century, early 20th century, many philosophers propose values. And we should do that again. That's my idea. So that is also the revival of East Asian tradition of thought. One of its interesting ideas is a holy fool. Foolishness is usually taken as a bad thing or vice, but according to this tradition, that's the virtue, or the most important virtue. So foolishness is a sort of intellectual incapability. That's not vice. That's the virtue. That's our reality. So I want to revive that idea into the new value system we term. Okay, let me finish. Thank you very much.
Professor Deguchi's the presentation is very complicated. No, it's very new type of thought, I feel. Thank you very much, Suzanne and Susannah and Jay. But I want to change the one remarks. The entity is not the largest in the world. The third company of telecommunications. One is Verizon, second is maybe AT&T. So third is United States too, and Japan. That's a situation. But anyway, thank you very much. I would like to extend my appreciation for your time to come to and to that exciting meetings. Today, I would like to very short remarks in terms for new technologies. First slide, please. That is we call the ION. It's a very focused to a next infrastructure based on the telecommunications. That's a feature, two features, including one is that we want to change the electronics to photonics, that's including a quantum. The other one is the digital to natural. I met Professor Yasuo-san in 4 years ago. The reason why the new technology is a tremendously change will come to our society, especially for electronics to photonics. It means reducing power consumption, maybe 1%, 90% we can cut. And also latency is a very short latency use photonics end to end. No exchange electronics to photonics. So those type of infrastructure will come to us. So we are very nervous in the digital to natural. Please, next slide, please. If once we want to be a much more well-being societies, currently the echo chamber or filter bubble type of SNS very difficult to connect the people or that merit I mentioned, like Yasuo. So it means more natural user interface will be needed for all of us. So that some cases the fifth sense communication, the other case is sixth sense ones to communicate directly, or it means non-verbal communication including. in a telecom side. Now I feel the technology is not mature for people to communicate, to make a relationship. Those type of technology, if once come to us, the case Deguchi mentioned, new infrastructure and technology will be needed, new philosophy. So I decided to establish a new philosophy institute with Kyoto University. Thank you very much today for joining us.
One of the things that you've heard both from Yasuo Deguchi and from Sawada-san is this turn from I to we as a way of thinking. And I just wanted to motivate that a little bit. There's two ways you could think about the relationships, or at least two ways, of individuals to a society. One is to think, hey, a bunch of us suddenly meet on a street corner and decide, let's form a society. And we bring all of our individual natural rights and duties and obligations that we had somehow as free-floating individuals and try as hard as we can to preserve those in a collective society that we create artificially. That's kind of a social contract model. And that doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense, because honestly, what we are hypersocial great apes who can only live in communities, and our lives only make sense in communities. So another way to think about the relationship between individuals and communities is that communities are what constitute our identities, and that we can't even understand what it is to have rights, privileges, duties, obligations, or relationships, or indeed to be persons outside of the collective. And my own hunch is that for too long, thinking about technology has been dominated by an individualistic perspective. And the result of that is a lot of people staring at individual screens a lot of the time. And that it's kind of time to rethink that. And I've been most impressed because Sawada-san, an engineer, a corporate executive in a telecommunications world, thinking philosophically, has been pushing in that direction as well. And so I think it's time to open up that conversation.
Thank you, Jay. I want to say that new trend of technologies is, I think that is we need a much more consistent type of a way. It means technology and social or philosophy, or Western and Eastern, or academia or the business. Those type of dualism type separation come to us. However, is that the answer is not the A or B. I think the answer is existing A and B, the coexisting type of way. So that's one of the sort of Eastern type of a sort. However, is we should recognize these both sort coexisting. The technology also is some people that singularity will come to us via aggressive procedure of generative AIs, especially. However, that we don't know, especially for beings, of course, especially human beings. We cannot analyze consciousness in a moment. But some in the future, distant future, we might analyze those way. However, that is case, I think in the moment is technology very difficult to realize those type of world. So the step by step, we need to make a relationship with AI or the other solution or technologies. But every time we need a social and the technological engineering type of a mindset, we need to combine to make up a much more good world, well-being world to establish for us. That's my mindset. Is as first remarks. some support or the
I
idea.
just want to build on that and ask, can you give a specific example of a we turn type of problem that you're working on?
Yeah, yes.
And both from Kyoto Institute of Philosophy as well as at NTT, and how do you actualize those we turn problems?
Okay, so first, let me mention, for example, we turn program or we program, I call that. And many technologies, the contemporary and in the past, has been proposed to enhance, empower individual. Of course, there are many other types of technology, but that's quite typical catchphrase for the new technology. Okay, that can empower individual. That's a good thing. I don't reject that at all. But that has a negative aspect, potentially or possibly. That is to not empower we. So my example, maybe, can I show the slide of last slide at the picture? Okay. So, okay, and so my example is a traditional sort of outdoor bench of Japanese house. So maybe some of you know or felt. So Japanese hot and humid summer, that's quite hot, quite humid. It's quite impossible to stay house whole day, but only in the evening. So now the climate will be cooler a bit and windy. So the people went outside and opened its bench in the small passage, for example. That's called enjoying of a cool weather, wind in the evening. And that is also the good opportunity for the neighborhood, exchange idea, socializing themselves. That was maybe my parents' generation's habit. But that habit now gone because most houses are air conditioned. Air conditioned is a good thing. That makes our life happier, cooler, and more convenient. But it lost that kind of opportunity for the very important socialization for the neighborhood. So this is empowerment, cooling down, that's a good idea. But some sort of damage or loss of we opportunity. So that's my example. So we program. And if we overemphasize empowerment over individual, some important aspect of we disappear unnoticed. So that's a very important and also very dangerous thing.
Yes, my case is a very actual example. As a CEO of NTT, 3 years ago, I set up the sustainability report based on the self as we concept. So the reason why that we need to change from I to we in terms to make up a much more inclusion type of a way, not only the employee, but also the customer or the lot of stakeholders. Those new type of capitalism will be needed in the next era. That's I adapt the new concept of Deguchi-san into our companies. That's a very good example, I feel. I'm sorry.
So I wondered if you could talk about some of the ethical considerations that I thought we had to press it the whole time. Okay, so what ethical considerations do you think that designers of technology and innovators need to keep in mind as they develop these technologies in this we mode?
And of course, an importance of we, just like I mentioned, one example, that's one thing. And the other things. So that is also one of our agendas. So ethics should be the plural, okay? Not only plural. Even each individual like me, you has a different ideas. That's quite natural. So human conditions. So that's quite natural to have a multi-layered ethical system in one single society. So I think a good thing to do for the technology to incorporate that kind of a multi-layeredness of ethical ideas, or provide some alternatives or choices at the same time to each individual people or each individual we society. That kind of a multi-layerness is, I think, one of the most important things to think about ethics.
Go ahead, Jay.
I think another question that we need to raise that's connected to the ethical, a political question connected to the ethical, is what you might think of as the domain of social engineering. We already accept a large public role for making certain kinds of decisions about infrastructure that affects us all, roads, dams, electrical infrastructure, and so forth. We think that is a public matter and that should be decided by the public sphere. But often when we're thinking about information technology or communication technology, we delegate that to private corporations, people like NTT, or people like AT&T, or people like IBM or Apple, and think that that's just a matter for the private sector in which the public doesn't really have a voice. That strikes me as weird because it, again, creates an individualistic or motivation for one range of technologies and a collective way of thinking for other technologies, and neglects the fact that these are completely interwoven and that now these technologies are as much a part of our social infrastructure as dams, roads, and airports. So thinking again collectively requires us to think about where we want policy to be made about these, and when decisions about information technology, decisions about communications technology are actually political decisions and not simply commercial decisions. And so it calls upon us to ask, how much of our political decision-making do we want to delegate to privately held corporations?
So then, Jay, as a follow-up to that, what do you think is the role of government or regulatory agencies in ensuring that companies and technologies are innovated in an ethical and socially respectful way?
From a viewpoint of telecommunications, that case is every time the resource is limited. In that case, some people, some agency have to permit or divide or assign those type of resources. However, in the informative technologies case, it's telecom company is needed to neutrality of a network. However, the platformers case is a very people don't know that they don't pay, that they release their information to platformers. The reason why the commercial model is existing, advertising model existing. Those cases, agency or the government have to make some guideline or to a goalkeeper, guarding some people's ethicals or something. Lastly, the judgment, it being an umpire. Those type of several functions will be needed into such official agencies. That's my mindset.
And so what that means is that we really require a very public discussion of exactly what the specific roles of government will be. And those may differ from place to place, but I think that it's kind of a joke to think that we can just simply watch and see what private actors do and just nod and smile and say that's the market. Because we would never do that for roadways, for dams, for education systems and so forth, which provide a very similar kind of social infrastructure. And I feel like we're kind of in a drift to a delegation of collective values to private actors that really requires some examination. And I think it's kind of important for a lot of players to be at the table discussing this, including all of us.
So then to build on that as well, Jay, you talked about the Kyoto Institute of Philosophy coming to be within the past year. How do you envision that institute playing a role in having these kinds of dialogues and having this impact and being able to give feedback to governments, to companies, to academic institutions? How do you envision that happening and unfolding beyond the conference that you told us about, which I already made a note about?
That is the good question also. That we need to make a momentum to join a lot of that Jay mentioned. So a lot of people participating to make up a new rule or the philosophy or I mentioned the momentum. So just we are on the way. The first we are going to have a seminar, the kickoff seminar in the next coming January with Jay at Kyoto. That is I think that's a kickoff. That's also target the midterm target is that to 2025's Kyoto conference. Those type of I can say that event is very remarkable for the other society peoples, I think. And you have.
And also let me mention impact. So we'd like to make to the academia, humanity and philosophy. So as I said, in 19th century, early 20th century, many philosophers propose ideas, values to society. Some are good, some are bad, maybe. But that was not the case in the 20th century. And philosophy became more self-centered or closed disciplines rather than opening the door to the outside world society. So I think there's a time to change that again. So our aim to make philosophy or humanity, academia more socially engaging activities. So our idea is engaging humanities, for example. That is one of the impact we'd like to make to the academia, university, or disciplines or humanities.
Yeah, I think anybody who's paid attention to what happens in Davos has probably noticed the dearth of humanities scholars. And we kind of want to displace Davos as a center for thinking about where technology is going to go. And it's very early days yet. But in addition to the conferences, we're also doing a lot to underwrite scholarship. We're making postdoctoral fellowships available for people doing humanities research. We're going to be creating a site for humanists from various domains and people from industry who are sincerely interested in what the humanities can provide to come together in conferences and meetings and joint research. Because as Sawada-san said earlier, this idea that the humanities and academia and the corporate world are just completely distinct worlds, and the decisions, by the way, get made in one of them rather than the other, is probably passé, and that we really need to be encouraging a lot more conversation, not across boundaries, but among people who don't recognize boundaries. And that's the hope. It's very early days yet. Our inauguration is in January, but the vision is that this is going to be a site in which genuine dialogue between political actors, economic actors, humanists, and again, people from Asia and the West and the global South and around the world can be doing this to really create a kind of more humanities enriched alternative to the Davos corporate culture.
So I have another question for Sawada-san. So you are clearly invested and connected with this new institute and thinking about embedding human values into technology and using that to drive technological innovation. I would say that chair folks of most companies are not necessarily thinking the way that you are. And so my question to you is, how do you convince them about the importance of taking this path, and how do you help them understand the ways to balance for the pursuit of profit and the pursuit of innovation with thinking about ethical issues and social issues and human values?
Sure. That is a very also good question. I am coming from civil engineering, very same as Susanna. So in a university, and Kyoto University, I graduated, and also in business. Every time the trade-off, the keyword was trade-off. The surrounding of my folks mentioned to me trade-off, which is better. Some cases are environmental assessment cases to make a balance. However, those type of innovation issues, I think A and B, I mentioned, not select A or B. So it means humanity or so those type of personal issues, and also technology or the corporate issues is that is, I think, overlapping, especially for AI coming to us, is the labor issues or the personal issues. A lot of issues come to us. So one very good solution is that new innovation technology will be solved those conflict. However, the other case, we need to change the concept or thought. So that we need a philosophy. So that my folks in the company has already several executives realized those words. However, most of the people very difficult to understand in the moment, I think.
Are there any other corporations that you're aware of, Sawada-san, who are moving in this direction, or is NTT the only player in this game now?
Yeah, to tell the truth, I'm the other hat I have is the chairman of the United States and Japan Business Council, Japanese side chairman. So I can have some route to extending this concept to a United States business side. Also, I'm a vice chair of Japanese Federal Industry Federal Corporations Institute, that the Keidan we call. I'm one of the vice chairs. So I talk to several executives of Japan business side. Most of the executives can understand those ones, and also the other company want to participate as a member, core member of our institute. That's a very fabulous for all of us to extending at this moment. That situation on the way.
So we'd love to have your questions. If you could stand up and tell us where you're coming from, and I know our panelists will be happy to talk more. And we have a microphone.
And feel free to direct your questions at a particular panelist or at the panel as a whole.
So my name is Andrew Berkey. I'm a chemist by training, so coming from that side. And I'm really curious about what happens when there are, in this sort of thought world, when there are two antagonistically opposed value systems, for example, around speech or around privacy, or even around ideas of, I guess, of like artificial general intelligence, that sort of thing. Like, what happens when two value systems are essentially diametrically opposed to each other? How does one sort of find a way through that morass?
That's also a very good question, Sid. But still, we are struggling to find out a solution to those type of challenges. But I believe the rich communication will open the next stage. So to realize that to understanding each other's. So not only that, at that time is generative AI will be the one of the two for all of us in the moment, in the other not matured technologies. But case by, not step by step, we are going to change. The next countermeasure will be needed. I'm sorry that I don't have the exact answer in the moment. Are you satisfied?
Okay, and I'm not relativist, but I'm pluralist. What is the difference between them? Relativist, okay, anything goes. In a pluralist, okay, that is a red zone. That is not compromise. So to kill the people, that's a bad thing at all. But if we admit some sort of a common, red lines, there should be many options. So to provide many options as possible, that is one possible way to, cope with that kind of diagnostically and different value systems. Okay, so not relativism, but pluralism, and as many as possible options should be provided.
Triple option.
Yes. Yes.
One of the things that Sawada-san said that might have gone by quickly earlier is that he is a fan of paraconsistent logic. And as some of you might know, paraconsistent logic is an area that Yasuo and I both work in, are logics that tolerate contradictions and that don't demand consistency. And a lot of people look at us like we're insane when we say that, but sometimes the right way through a problem isn't to strive for consistency too quickly, but to hold inconsistent positions and not to say, I've got to choose one or the other, but say, let's have both for a while and see what happens. So it may well be that you've got value systems that require that or that suggest contrary approaches to a particular technology. One way to handle that is to talk. Another way to handle that is try both and see what happens and keep a little bit of tension going. I mean, one of the things that I'm hoping that we encounter in the Kyoto Institute of Philosophy is a lot of disagreement. And I think the potential to hold that disagreement and tension and to keep talking is super important. We kind of know what happens when people stop talking, and that's not always good.
Let me say, one more. So in a Western standard tradition, Aristotelian tradition, contradiction is another name of absurdity. And I and J said, maybe not. Some contradiction is not so absurd. So some good contradiction, maybe.
My name is James Lowenthal in Department of Astronomy. Thank you very much for this really fascinating discussion. There are so many technologies that are disruptive, trains and automobiles and airplanes and telephones and television and internet and now commercialization of low Earth orbit in space. And one way, of course, to implement our values is to regulate, at least in the Western world, at least in America. But there's always a tension between those who are pushing for more regulation, those who are pushing for less to implement those values. Usually there's a long lag in time, maybe decades after the technology comes out, until finally it is regulated and those values are implemented. Can you comment on how the we turn philosophy or the other philosophical ideas that you're promoting here would relate to regulation of disruptive technologies?
So also that's a very good question, I feel. That we want to back to the early age of computer systems. That's the master slave model is to change to the downsizing to a network model. Master slave model. In the moment, the AI technology not so matured. So in case that decade, we will use AI as a tool or the changing world as a slave. That model is very initial style architecture. We'll be changing much more network type of way in the next decade. Will come to us is a quantum computing systems, quantum telecommunication system. That means I call the photonics. Those ways much more disruptive change you mentioned that will come to us. In that case, Deguchi-san, Yasuo-san mentioned that the AI is one of the not two, that's a friend. In that case, they are very exceeding intellectual capability more than human beings. In that case, we are utilized as a network model. It means we, including a computer, AI, tool, that is everything one of the we. That's a concept we terms.
And let me say one more thing. And I think nowadays, a very widespread model about disruptive technology is the model of ex post facto. Some first technology produces something and see the result. If bad result come out, regulations. So we should change the order before the invention of technology. So humanity, the other players in the society should join that development itself. So we need sort of in advance model to incorporate society's values in the very first stage of development of technology before they're going out to the society and will make some bad things. So in advance model, that is my answer to your questions.
One way to put that is that there's a kind of false duality between regulation and no regulation. Right now, we are regulating technology very explicitly. We're saying the decisions get made by individual actors. That's a regulatory regime. It might be a stupid regulatory regime. It might be a kind of refusal of responsibility, but it is a regulatory regime. So if we're asking right now, what's going to happen to facial recognition technology, and we're kind of waiting to see which companies release it, how fast, that's a regulatory act already, even if it's a negative regulatory act. It's the act that says anybody who wants to release it can. Now, I think that's a stupid idea, right? And we really require a whole lot more conversation about how, whether, when to develop these extremely disruptive technologies, rather than saying, oh my God, we've been disrupted. How did that ever happen? And that's kind of what we're hoping to establish, a kind of arena in which that can occur.
Thank you for a very stimulating conversation. My name is Boriana Mikic. I'm Susanna's colleague in the engineering program here on the faculty. And my question is, I'm curious what your perspectives would be on the implications for this shift in how we educate future engineers. Where does the responsibility lie within a large corporation, for example, that employs engineers, computer scientists, data scientists to think in this manner? Is it curious to hear your thoughts on those implications?
They're also very good questions. And those are very difficult questions. But practically, what I can say is that I mentioned the trade-off issues. I don't any trade-off issues in operations. Trade-off issue and simultaneously, we need those type of diversity inclusion type of a concept. So that will be coexisting for executives. However, each employees, we need very difficult to educate those type of way. The reason why that will be hear from them that very ambiguity, very complicated type of a concept. So the step up type of way would be needed, those cases. So at first, in our company, we are going to utilize generative AI, and also we are now developing a new type of LLM, large learning model. And also it combined with photonics technology to changing a data center model to reduce power consumptions. Those one is a very trade-off type of a way. However, that technology will make a much more disruptive change for societies. The other side, the mission people have to realize those ones, or those impact to peoples. So so double way also, we need and the step-by-step education system will be needed next era. That's my answer. Are you satisfied? Okay, sorry.
Hello, my name is Brent Durbin. I'm a political scientist. And thank you for your visit and for bringing your expertise and interesting and important questions to our community. My question, I know that the project is in its early stages, but do you have yet a theory or idea of what success looks like for your enterprise? Is it changing more minds to adopt a we-based way of doing things? Is it a series of experiments or different technologies that can promote that kind of thinking? How are you thinking about success in the kind of future for your project?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not so futurist, so about pre-technicist. However, photonics technologies case is we are not alone. And also that first 4 years ago, I made this concept and the vision and to first talk to Intel Sony. That's a core member of this is a global forum I established at United States. Now is 130 partner entities join this forum. The reason why the open innovation and partnering will be needed in the next steps. So that we don't close this technology. The reason why we don't have everything. We have only for transmission technology, that the optical type of a transmission technology we introduced 40 years ago is this long distance to come to access network. Now we are going to enter to a server system and the semiconductor side. It's going to small. The other case is that we are going to scale up into a space as the laser transmission systems. That those type of a concept is a lot of related people, including so the Microsoft or Amazon or the Qualcomm or Intel, Broadcom, a lot of a company that agree with us. Now we coordinate those type of technologies forum. So that's one of the steps to success, I feel. So but still, we need a much more trust and integrity, and lastly, the connect. Every time in the relationship is a very important things to build up a solution for a community. So we need a much more other measure or other I can say that the philosophy or social or the engagement will be needed. Is that satisfied?
Hi, Michael Baresi. I'm a biologist and neuroscientist. Thank you very much for coming. It's really fascinating conversation. I have kind of a two-part question. The first one is I'm sort of trying to wrap my head around this we philosophy. And my first reaction is that I actually feel a little ironic that the technology you're promoting is actually called I own, which it's just curious to me. But when we think about technologies, and yours being a communication company, over the last 20 years with the emergence of the internet, in many ways, those technologies have been grounded in the premise of access and increasing the we. But the outcome of a lot of that has in fact been negative. has, unified groups, and that's been a sounding board for misinformation that has led to increased divisions in the greater community. So I'm curious if you can kind of comment on all of that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. That is a very good remarks for us. We need much more focus those type of, I can say the telecom company, my company's case has already the voice communication revenue is coming down to the 15% from 90% from 30 years ago. The most of the structure of revenue business has already very tremendously changed. We need to much more portfolio to extending not only the telecom, including IT, including the other type of related circular economy systems. So the technology is very important. Also is we can utilize you are coming from a biology. It's me. I very study the Yasuo type of emerald type of technologies. The dolphin have a 3 type of censorship, either to clicking or that some hoisting, and also the to be the visual ones. So 2.5 kilometer hoisting system they have. We don't have. So, however, we can utilize those type of other merit technology into human beings merit. The other case is so connect the merit to merit. Those type of technology trend now we don't have. So I want to extend those type of interdisciplinary type of way into so technology and the business. And I'm sorry, that's all. So my answer is not so correct for you, but this is my mind.
And so I think you're quite right. And one of the problems of the current system of internet, for example, is its access is quite atomistic. So we in a society, real society, doesn't exist as atom, but in a molecular. So we need many other people who support us. But whenever I try to enter the internet, so address or account is quite individualistic. So we should make ourselves atom rather than in a molecular form to get into the internet. So in the internet world, we first should make ourselves atom status. That's quite dangerous, I think. So whenever after that, so we try to, in the internet world, but that's based on the atom system or myth of atom rather than molecular. And I think one of the dangerous aspect of the internet that bad influence to our society or we.
All right. So I see that we have a lot more hands and we are actually at time already. So I'm going to just ask each of the panelists to say one takeaway that they would like educators and students to take from this panel. And then if other people want to stay around and ask them questions afterwards, you're welcome to do so. So one very short takeaway for the educators and students in this room to take from the panel conversation today.
Okay. And maybe so this is a question, my answer to the earlier question. So what is our idea about education technology? To study values, that's also very important thing. I think you are doing that very well because there are many strong humanity department here, and you have an engineering department. So there should be some sort of a cross connection or collaboration between the two. I think that's very important. So technology is not value neutral, that's value laden. So we need good values, not bad. So that kind of a collaboration from the first year of technology education is very important to study values. Thank you.
Yeah, so I hope the good collaboration with the Smith College based on so you have a very traditional and also the integrity and also the innovative. That's a consistent, I feel. So we want to have a good co-works for next good well-being societies. Thank you.
Our choice is not to regulate or not to regulate. It's how to regulate. And our choice is not whether to infuse the development of technology with values or not. It's which values we choose. And to refuse that is just to abdicate our responsibility as citizens.
Thank you so much for coming, and we're happy to, if you want to speak to the panelists briefly before we all leave, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you.